Hello everyone, 𝐊𝐴𝐺 welcome you all to the Executive Corner Expert Talks 20 Minutes Roundup, and today we're very lucky to have Mr. Bruce Maluish, Managing Director of VRX Silica Limited. So we bring you industry leaders, successful business owners, market and equity advocates all under one roof to help you discover the insights of the stock markets and help you understand how one can create multiple passive income streams. So in today's show, we're very lucky to have Mr. Bruce Maluish, Managing Director of VRX Silica Limited, with us today. Welcome, Bruce. It's a pleasure meeting you. Great. So beginning with our first question. VRX Silica recently reported several exciting recent developments. What progress do you think you have made in developing your projects, please?
It's a very important announcement we made the other day, which is that we have lodged the environmental review document for the environmental assessment of our Arrowsmith North silica sand project. It's a culmination of we started 3 years ago accumulating data on this location. And we've done innumerable studies. I think there's 14 environmental studies that have been completed over the area. But it's that image behind me is in fact Arrowsmith North, and it's the top of the dune system, which is about 12 kilometres long and about 4 kilometres wide, and it's about 15 metres high. And that, in fact, behind me is the drill rig. And that's out there conducting grade control as we speak, and that's on the very northern end of the prospect. So it's got a long ways to go. And initially we'll grade control about 30 years worth of production, and we'll increase the resource in the area to indicated status, measured status, and we can get proven reserves on it. And that'll allow us to finalise our detailed mining schedule, which is required for the mining proposal for the mines department. So it's a very important step in the project. And what we have done is, wherever surveys have been required by the EPA on Arrowsmith North, we've duplicated those at our other two projects. So once we get this approved, we can move very quickly on getting the other two submissions in as well. It's a little bit different to most projects. That bush you see behind me is only about waist high. It's called Quangan Heath. And we've developed the mining method really particularly for this type of vegetation, because the root systems, you can imagine this is very sandy soil, so the root systems don't go very deep. In fact, most of them go about 200-300 millimetres. And we've developed a method whereby we can take out a sod of 3 metres by 3 metres by 400 millimetres, and we can go and move it back to where it's just been mined. So in fact, the whole mining process really is a mining and rehabilitation process with sort of mining built around it. It's unique. It has been done before, and we're able to get data from prior attempts at this. But it is unique for it to be undertaken now. And with that becomes a bit of a problem, because the EPA don't have any exposure to that type of mining. So there's a fairly extensive education process, including animation and videos, to demonstrate how we think it can happen. So it's an important step for us. And in fact, it is a very important step for the other two projects as well, because once we establish the mining method, it's directly applicable to the other projects.
And question 2, where does the company currently stand amidst the emerging silica sand space?
We're probably leading the pack, I would think, only because we started on this 3 years ago. But a couple of other companies have realised that the market in Asia is improving for Australian potential producers. Every sign we have is that the supply side of the equation in Asia is getting tighter and tighter all the time. And that's also indicated from the number of inquiries we get. We're getting inquiries weekly from producers in Asia, predominantly China, because China is the biggest producer. But we're engaged at the moment with a number of the producers out of Korea and Japan, and that's for glass manufacturing and the foundry industry as well. Unfortunately, that process has gone much slower than we anticipated. They've had recent second and third waves through Korea and Japan, and that's made it difficult for communication. We're getting there, but also the producers we're talking about are big companies, household names. They take a little bit longer to get over the line, and really they want a site visit, which is just impossible at the moment. They can't come out of Japan or Korea to come to site without quarantine. So we're sending as much information as we possibly can on videos and photos, and I think we can demonstrate quite easily the size of the resource. So we're getting very close to finalising offtake. But there's significant demand there, and it'll lead up all the demand from all the future producers out of Australia as well.
Next question is, would you like to touch upon the silica sand supply situation in Asia and what market opportunities it's currently eyeing?
Every country in the Asia Pacific has banned exports of silica sand. So it's very difficult. There is no seaborne trade. There's very little seaborne trade. Australia is an exporter, but there's very little seaborne trade, so it's difficult to measure that. But there is no doubt that the supply is becoming a serious issue in Asia, particularly for glass making, but also for the foundry industry, and also probably construction in Singapore and Hong Kong. And unfortunately, they're using up sand that could possibly be beneficiated to glass quality. So the supply is very tight. And it's a good time to be in this particular sector. Every country has banned exports, except for Vietnam. And Vietnam has very limited export capability, and the government there is a bit loath to issue permits. And we know of a number of companies that did have permits but don't any longer to export silica sand. And in fact, there is a growing glass making industry in Vietnam close to existing deposits, and of course those producers don't want to see their sand being exported. So it's a very interesting situation, certainly dominated by China, and the amount of interest we got from China is staggering.
Next question is, VRX Silica will undertake grade control drilling at Arrowsmith North project in the area where it is planning to mine for the first 6 to 10 years. Could you please throw some light on this activity?
It's underway. We did announce the other day that it would be happening about now. It doesn't take very long. Fortunately, drilling relatively shallow holes, most holes are only 20-30 metres deep. And you can imagine it's not hard rock, it's sand. So it'll happen. It'll take about a week. It'll take much longer to have all the assays completed. And we look at all sorts of other qualities about the sand while we're drilling it, and that may dictate how, when, and why we mine certain parts of it. But it's extremely extensive, it's remarkably consistent, and it's an enormous deposit. So we're barely making a dent in it at this point.
And I see that VRX has lodged its application for the environmental approval. When does the company expect to secure the environmental approvals for the development of Arrowsmith North project?
It'll take about 3 months to get, we think, as long as the department doesn't require any extra studies. We lodged draft documents last year. We got comments back late last year, and we've been dealing with those comments since then. So we're assuming that we've dealt with all the issues that have been raised, and as long as they don't find any more in the meantime, it should meet the statutory assessment period. There are no threatened or endangered species there, so it's a little bit easier, and also it's very extensive. The area we're operating, there's about 180,000 hectares of this type of vegetation, so we're not making a big dent in it, and we're hoping that they'll accept the rehabilitation method that we've developed and we're promoting as being the best method around for the best outcomes.
And while the company is progressing with developments at the Arrowsmith North project, where does its 𝐊𝐴𝐴 Silica Sand project currently stand?
As I said, any studies we've done, any studies that we've conducted at Arrowsmith North, we've also conducted at the other two projects, Arrowsmith Central and 𝐊𝐴𝐴. 𝐊𝐴𝐴's a little bit closer to town. It's going to get more scrutiny, so we have to make sure we tick all the boxes and be absolutely thorough in all the studies that we've conducted there. We think we've conducted those at an extremely high standard, so there's no doubt the EPA can make an assessment based on very good science.
And has VRX Silica finalised any offtake partner to underpin development of its silica sand projects? Will this underpin the required finance for the project CAPEX?
Certainly the offtake agreements will underpin finance. We're talking to a number of potential financiers, and that's anywhere from funds to also the offtake partners. The offtake, we're really aiming at the moment on a good foundation partner who will take the offtake. In some cases, they are a distributor for a country. Other cases, they're very large glass manufacturers. It takes some time to get them across the line. COVID hasn't helped, but certainly we're very close at the moment, and I have to say we're being very picky about who we want to do the deal with. There's a number of trading houses that are happy to sign up now, but we're not sure that if it takes a bit longer to get the right partner in place, we think it is worthwhile.
Are there any major exploration plans for the company during 2021?
The grade control here at Arrowsmith North is high on our list. We have another project at 𝐕𝐢𝐝𝐞 down near Esperance. We've got a big land holding down there. We'll do some exploration down there. It's twofold. One, to get sort of an inferred resource, but also to get us some sample for metallurgical test work. It's logistically, it's not quite as good a situation, and it's sort of a future prospect for us. But it's different sand again, and what we're trying to do is develop each of these projects to produce different products to go to different markets. So these projects are not competing with each other for the same market. And as it happens, 𝐕𝐢𝐝𝐞 is very fine sand, so it will go to yet another, a different market. Some techniques we've developed in our metallurgical test work, we also think will be directly applicable to that project. So There'll be some exploration there this year, but really this year is about getting the environmental approval and getting Arrowsmith North up and running.
And how is VRX Silica positioned to generate value for its shareholders against its peers?
As I said, we're probably leading the pack probably by a couple of years. So the environmental surveys are not easily done, and they tend to be a bit of an iterative process. You'll do a survey at a certain time of the year, and it may highlight some particular types of vegetation that you have to do surveys on later. And also, I hate to say it, but the EPA changed the rules a little bit every now and then, and in fact at Arrowsmith North,
Sure.
we had to go back and double the density of the number of survey quadrants that were required for the flora survey. But you know, we're well ahead of other operators, and we think we can get into production first.
Is the company looking for any capital raising programs to fund its future growth?
The capital required for the plant is about 30 million Aussie, and we think we can finance that reasonably easily. Boutique type funds, they're expensive, but part of our problem is that we pay it back too quickly. And it's not really a big enough amount for the banks to get excited about. But we've got a lot of interest to finance this, and that's from Australian funds and also Asian funds. Asian money at the moment is quite cheap. You know, we're also talking to a couple of the offtake partners about maybe financing. It's not a big piece of money. We're market capped at around 150 million at the moment, so raising 30 million is well within our reach.
Well, that was a fabulous show. It was lovely chatting with you, Bruce. We thank you so much for your time. With that, I, Sage, will sign off for today. Watch this space for more. Until then, stay apprised and invest wise with 𝐊𝐴𝐚𝐥𝐤𝐢𝐵.